My very first playthrough was intentionally not spending attributes and perks to avoid being too overpowered. Then I challenged myself to beat the secret ending at level 18, but now it's time to min-max some builds. Welcome to my series on meta builds for Cyberpunk 2077, updated for patch 1.62. Today I'm starting with a couple of short-circuit crit builds. Before patch 1.5, it was possible to one or two shot many bosses. However, since then, damage has been drastically reduced and invulnerability phases have been added. Despite these changes, you can still absolutely delete bosses with short circuit crit builds. This build capitalizes on the short circuit passive, which procs whenever you land a critical hit. Since any weapon or cyberware arms can crit, this build will multiply the damage of all weapons, making everything viable. Short circuit crit builds have been around since launch and have always been the highest DPS. However, what has changed is how to build up crit and the importance of attributes and perks. This video will showcase two versions of my short circuit crit build, starting with a glass cannon version that has extremely high DPS, and a comfy version with increased survivability and utility in exchange for less damage. As I discuss the builds, I'll be pointing out areas where you can customize or change them based on your weapon choice, playstyle, and loot RNG. One final note is that everything is on the very hard difficulty, and this build can be customized to fight against any threat level. You can even beat the secret ending, which has level 50 enemies, relatively comfortably at around levels 28 to 30. How does short circuit work? The passive of the legendary short circuit is proccing the damage effect when dealing a critical hit. This is shown by the animation of sparks flying from enemies. Despite the description of it dealing moderate damage, I definitely would not consider it moderate. When short circuit is multiplied by crit stats and other damage modifiers, short circuit procs can deal anywhere between 20 to 50,000 damage, which is significantly more damage than most weapons in the game. As you can see in this clip, the shot from the Moron Labay deals 12,000 damage and short circuit hits for 47,000, adding up to 59,000 damage. Since the damage output is so high, this is one of the fastest ways to clear out groups of enemies and complete quests. Obviously, these numbers may vary depending on the enemy's resistances to shock and player level. Starting with weapons. Short circuit crit builds are best paired with any weapon that has a high attacks per second, such as the Problem Solver with a DS1 Pulsar, the new Senko LX Tech Submachine Gun, and of course tech pistols such as the M76E Omaha or the Lizzie. Also, any weapon that fires multiple projectiles, such as shotguns, tech precision rifles, including the Widowmaker or Achilles. Since any weapon can crit, by the mid-game you can basically use all weapons, even the vending machine slot-o-matics. However, it takes a while to build up enough crit to reliably proc short circuit, so I'll be going through my recommended weapons from low levels to high levels. In the early game, I look out for the DB2 Satara Tech Shotgun, as it's ridiculously powerful in the mid to early game. On very hard, it is easy to get one shot, so you can simply shoot enemies from behind a wall after marking them with your corrosion optics. These Tiger Claws that use the DB2 Satara Tech Shotgun are in the same location all the time, and they're often respawning, so be sure to go farm them. I'd also recommend throwing knives in the early game, as it's one of the only ways to one-shot enemies from a stealth position. Early on, you have to land headshots with knives to guarantee the one-hit kill, but later, once you build up enough crit, you can land body shots and still one-hit enemies with knives. Completing gigs or missions stealthily often has unique consequences, so it's always good to have an option for stealth. After that, we have the Buzzsaw and Fenrir. Buzzsaw is a unique power weapon that when you aim down sights, it has the ability to pierce through walls, and when you get kills through walls, it provides experience for the engineering free in technical ability. Fenrir is another beast of a gun that has an increased chance to light enemies on fire. These two weapons are accessible in Watson during Act 1 from the Suspected Organized Crime and the gig Losing My Religion. Once you hit the mid-game, stacking ricochet damage helps immensely with your overall damage, and if you complete the Altaculta questline during the quest Riders of the Storm, don't forget to kill the boss hunter and he'll drop the Problem Solver. Other assault weapons such as the Morin Labe or the QB are really good at one-hitting most enemies once your stats are built up. From the mid-game onward, you can start using guns to one-shot enemies from a stealth position. Just make sure to equip the silencer and aim for headshots. The crafting spec for the Morin Labe can be picked up from this suspected organized crime in Pacifica, and up to an epic version of the QB can be purchased from most gun vendors if you are high enough level. Of course, most revolvers can be used as stealthy one-shot kills. One last note on weapons is that if you save scum or re-roll the legendary DS1 Pulsar, I'd highly recommend going for the 20% additional damage and reduced draw time bonus stats, as it'll deal insane damage very close to that of the problem solver. Weapon mods and clothing. So as mentioned earlier, ricochet damage is extremely powerful after 1.5. It was the only stat that was buffed, and to utilize it properly, make sure to look out for good muzzle brakes. You can buy muzzle brakes from Wilson's store during Act 2, which scales up to epic if you're a high enough level. There's also a chance of finding legendary versions in the open world. I personally haven't come across the best ones in my playthroughs at a legendary tier, but according to the wiki, compared to its epic version, legendary can add an extra 40% ricochet damage multiplier, which is absolutely massive. The majority of muzzle brakes halve your crit chance, but keep in mind that it only halves the crit chance on your weapon and not the crit chance on your stats page. If you don't want to deal with the half crit chance, then applying the Aswang, which does not halve crit chance and just adds extra damage, is really good. Otherwise, if you have enough crit chance on your stats page, then I'd recommend using the Strigoi or the Tsar. When patch 1.5 hit, I made a video where I tested ricochet damage, including how the shots track targets and the different muzzle brakes, so be sure to check that out. Despite all this talk about ricochet damage, if you don't like aiming for ricochets, this build has enough damage in it to be strong regardless. As for sights, I personally like using the handyman sights. It just got the ammo counter and a relatively clean sight to use. Now for mods on the weapons themselves, you can either use crit chance mods or penetrator mods, which are really good for consistent critical hits, or you can use crunch mods, which are great for that additional damage. As for clothing, clothing can have bonus stats in exchange for one mod slot. Make sure to look out for bonus damage against specific threat levels, quick hack cooldown, and crit damage. As for modding the clothing, I normally use a Fortuna mod for the face piece, and the head can either have a legendary Hackslinger mod, Predator, or Showtime mod. If you like to spam quick hacks, then stacking quick hack cooldown reduction on 4 pieces of clothing, combined with the Tetratonic Rippler Mark IV Cyber Deck and a legendary Hackslinger mod will add up to 87% quick hack cooldown reduction, and with quick hack progression, it'll add up to 100% cooldown, allowing for instant refreshes on quick hacks. Of course, if you want to use quick hacks only occasionally, then going for the damage modifiers are best, and also using the Netwatch NetDriver Cyber Deck. You can also change clothing at any time and rotate between different legendary sets to suit your playstyle. Moving on to attributes and perks. The first version is a glass cannon build that focuses on maximizing damage. In this build, I went for 20 cool, mainly for Merciless, 18 or 20 technical ability for crafting, infinite money, and bonus damage for tech weapons, 16 intelligence, mainly for the critical error perk, and the legendary frontal cortex crit cyberware, and the remainder in reflexes for additional damage and movement speed. Keep in mind that you can get legendary quick hacks at 3 intelligence, but I'll discuss more of that in the cyberware section. Leveling. So this applies to both builds, but generally speaking, if you're doing a level 50 build, I like to level 2 attributes at once. For maximum damage, level cool and intelligence together, or if you feel like you need infinite money earlier in the game, then leveling technical ability alongside cool and intelligence is very useful. Taking a closer look at perks, in the Cold Blood tree, there's Merciless. A fair portion of the build's damage comes from the use of Merciless, which is valuable as soon as it's unlocked and very strong at around 20 points of investment. Generally, after the initial 20-point investment, I spend perk points elsewhere in the build, then come back and invest any remaining perks into Merciless again. The The way it works is that Merciless allows crit stats to be applied as soon as you get 1 stack of Cold Blood, so a lot of the perks are about increasing the Cold Blood uptime. So looking at the remainder of perks, there's Cold Blood, which after defeating an enemy you gain a stack of Cold Blood for 7 seconds. At its base it just increases movement speed and then it stacks. We've got Coagulant, which makes the stacks remove one by one instead of all at once. Cold and Calculating, so that landing a crit has a 50% chance of applying a stack of Cold Blood. We also have Critical Condition, which increases the duration of Cold Blood by 50%, and Coldest Blood, which increases the max stack amount of Cold Blood by 2, making it 5. I've also got Easy Out for the additional damage for ranged weapons that are within a 5-meter radius, and then Frozen Precision, which increases headshot damage by 5% for each stack of Cold Blood. Moving on to ninjutsu. Now I like to use stealth and throwing knives. If you do not want to use stealth at all and throwing knives, you can just remove most of these perks that are here, but let's go through them. Crouching Tiger increases movement speed while sneaking by 20%, Silent and Deadly for the additional damage while sneaking, Sniper for increased headshot damage, From the Shadows for additional crit once you enter combat while stealthed, Juggler for the returning knives, Ghost for the detection time increase, Dagger Dealer for throwing knives as well, Strike from the Shadows, which increases your crit chance while you're crouched or sneaking, Assassin for extra damage against humans, and Cheat Death is probably the only defensive perk that I have invested, which is when your health drops below 50%, reduce all incoming damage by 50% for 10 seconds, cannot occur more than once per minute. Next, taking a look at technical ability. So obviously while you're leveling you want to upgrade True Craftsman, Grease Monkey, and then probably want cost optimization and Ex Nihilo as well. However, once you're done leveling, you just need Cutting Edge, Edge Runner Artisan, and Field Technician for the additional damage. In the engineering tree, I've got Play the Angles for the additional 50% damage for ricocheted shots, Lickety Split for tech weapon, reduced charge time, Tesla for additional charge multiplier, Uber Charge for again more damage, and Blade Runner because mechs can be some of the tankiest enemies in the game. Keep in mind that Revamped is automatically unlocked as soon as you hit level 20 in the skill progression, and you don't need to spend any perks to get those bonuses. Okay, so taking a look at Breach Protocol, while you're leveling you want to use Datamine Virtuoso for the guarantee to get quick hacks from access points, and then you can also use Advanced Datamine for more money as well. But in the quick hacking tree, we've got Critical Error, which allows quick hacks to deal crits, Biosynergy just so that you have RAM regen while in combat, Bloodware for more damage, and same with Subliminal Message for more damage as well. Next, there's Reflexes. Here I mostly spec'd up the damage ones. I don't really like to use stuff that increases your damage while you're behind cover, and I don't really need the reload speed because oftentimes enemies die within the cycle of the 3 weapons that you have. But anyway, there's Bullseye for increased rifle and submachine gun damage while aiming by 10%, Bullet Jock, which just increases the damage by 10%, Duck Hunter is pretty good because enemies are moving a lot, so ricochet shots will actually track them while they're running and just deal that extra 20% damage, Nerves of Steel for increased headshot damage, and Executioner for more damage with enemies above 50%. Now, if you want to specialize more in handguns or blades, then of course, speccing up perks in those trees are important, but the footage that you see of me using handguns are without any of these perks. The final perk that I have invested is in Pack Mule, just for increased carrying capacity, and that's pretty much it. Now just discussing customization a little bit, so maybe you don't want to use throwing knives at all or stealth and you don't want to bother with that, and same with ricochet shots, you just remove those, and if you don't like using tech weapons, again you can remove those as well and just dump them back into Merciless for more crit chance and crit damage. The second version is a comfy one with less save scumming and some investment into body in exchange for slightly less damage. The main difference between the first and the second build is removing the attributes from reflexes and placing them in intelligence to hit 20 and 10 points into body for more survivability. I find that using quick hacks more often makes Cyberpunk really easy on any difficulty, so investing more intelligence helps with RAM management and damage. Part of what makes quick hacking so easy is that whenever you activate your Kuroshis to scan enemies, time slows, allowing for very easy, point and click damage through quick hacks. Also, since we have 20 points in intelligence, this allows you to craft legendary quick hacks and avoid the need to save scum access points. However, if you are happy to get legendary quick hacks from access points, then you can further decrease the intelligence and up the body attribute for more access to cyberware and other perks. So I'm only going to highlight the perks that I've changed here, but essentially there's a few additions in the athletics, starting with regeneration for health regen, epimorphosis for again more health regen in combat, and then Wolverine for the activation of that health regen. If you decide to increase the body stat, then I'd highly recommend going for divided attention, which allows you to reload weapons while doing actions such as sprinting, sliding, and vaulting, and then multitasker, which allows you to shoot also while doing those actions. So next, there's a couple of changes in Breach Protocol. Firstly, I have Head Start, which automatically uploads the first daemon in the list, and then there's Compression, which reduces the length of sequences required to upload demons by 1. So these just help with, again, uploading demons pretty simple. You can of course try Massive Vulnerability if you want to, and we don't need Data Mine Virtuoso since we're crafting quick hacks. In the quick hacking section it's pretty similar. The main difference is having Daisy Chain for the quick hack cooldown, and then also while you're leveling and crafting stuff, you want to use Bartmoss's Legacy to craft legendary quick hacks. You can buy all the epic ones from netrunning vendors, so just keep that in mind. Another perk that I have unlocked is Master Ram Liberator. So again, you don't need to spend any perk points, you just need to get the progression to 20 for that to unlock, and it helps with Ram recovery rate. Now another defensive option is using the Blood Swell perk, which essentially gives you a second life. Upon receiving lethal damage while Cold Blood is active, it prevents death, and then it restores 10% health per stack of Cold Blood and consumes them. Also grants immunity for 5 seconds. However, while that perk is active, you cannot gain Cold Blood stacks. Since you lose the stacks of Cold Blood upon taking lethal damage, then you'll also lose your damage stats, so be wary of that. Next, there's Cyberware. So the attributes that you decide to go with influences the Cyberware pieces that you can equip. Normally, I equip some variation of the ones that I'm about to go through, with mainly changes to the different tiers, for example common, uncommon, and so forth. Starting with the frontal cortex, I have the limbic system enhancement and the visual cortex support at legendary to increase the crit chance and crit damage. I also opt to use the mechatronic core to increase the damage against mainly mechs. Another good option is the memory boost cyberware, which when defeating an enemy instantly recovers 3 RAM, which is really good if you like to spam quick hacks. Next, there's Kuroshi Optics, and I opt to use the weak spot detection for crit chance, threat detector to highlight enemies, and trajectory analysis for the bonus headshot damage. For the circulatory system, I have the biomonitor, adrenaline booster for stamina, and feedback circuit for healing as well. And you can opt to change one of them for the micro generator if you get hit by melee things a lot, or for example if you're doing Beat on the Brat. Of course, if you have a higher body stat, you can change this for higher tiers, higher than common. In the immune system, I have Pain Editor to reduce incoming damage by 10%, and Inductor for that immunity to shock and EMP damage. In the nervous system, there's Synaptic Accelerator, which when you're detected slows time, and the Korenzikov, which while dodging also slows time. In the integumentary system, I have Optical Camo for stealth, Subdermal Armor for the additional armor, and Heat Converter for that immunity to burn. In skeleton, there's Titanium Bones for the increased carrying capacity, or the Micro Vibration Generator for the increased base damage of melee weapons. You can of course change this to Synaptic Signal Optimizer if you want the extra HP, but that's optional. For hands, the Ballistic Coprocessor is my go-to because I'm using ricochet damage. Of course, if you prefer to use smart weapons, then Smart Link is something that you can go for too. For arms, I go for the Gorilla Arms so that you have that additional 6+ to your body stat for attribute checks, and then it's also really good for Beat on the Brat, which I find easy with short circuit crit builds. And lastly, there's Reinforced Tendons. Of course, you can change these to whichever jump style that you want to go for, but I prefer to use double jump. Next, I wanted to go through my quick hacks of choice. Ping mainly to scout enemies, disable cameras through walls, and when using tech weapons to pierce through walls. Obviously there's short circuit next. After, there's weapon glitch and reboot optics. They're both amazing at disabling groups of enemies by using their passives and uploading demon. If you are in combat, weapon glitch disables and damages enemies, whereas reboot optics is really good for maintaining stealth. Next, there's System Reset, which is great at taking down enemies regardless of their health bar, and also has a great passive, reducing the RAM cost of quick hacks. Lastly, there's Memory Wipe, which makes enemies forget about you and allows for easy stealth takedowns. This even works on cyber psychos and bosses. Of course, you can change to any quick hacks that you'd like, so just keep that in mind. Getting free quick hacks. On launch, people notice that when you go to sell quick hacks, you will often have multiple copies despite not crafting or buying any. This is also applied to legendary quick hacks, meaning they were being acquired from access points. Just a warning, this was bugged in one of my playthroughs, but it was fine for the others. Short Circuit or other legendary quick hacks can be picked up as soon as you finish the heist and start Act 2. There are a few locations that have access points which don't require any intelligence to hack, and plenty more at 9 or 10 intelligence. In patch 1.5, CDPR changed the way gigs functioned. Before patch 1.5, most gigs were accessible as soon as you finished Act 2. This meant that you could easily enter any building, and the majority of buildings remained open after you completed the quests there. However, after 1.5, gigs now have a specific order that they are unlocked, and buildings are mainly open when the gig or side mission is available. One location that is not closed off is the 7th Hell Bar. In the washroom, there is a vending machine that can be hacked that requires no extra intelligence. When the gig and Inconvenient Killer is active, there are another 4 access points that you can get legendary quick hacks from. These other access points mostly require 9 intelligence to hack. Another location is Vista del Rey Haywood. If you head across from the Delamain HQ fast travel station, there's an access point on the 2nd level outside the building. If you don't have double jump yet, you can use the boxes across from it to get to it. Again, there's another gig here, and once unlocked, there's more access points inside the building. Finally, there's the gig Serial Suicide in Corpo Plaza that has 5 or more access points that allows you to get legendary quick hacks at 10 intelligence. A few things to keep in mind. Firstly, if you hack access points before unlocking the Datamine Virtuoso perk, then it's only a chance that you'll get a quick hack from that access point. That means that you'll have to save scum or just reload a save before you hack that access point and try again. Also, there's a chance to get duplicates, so even with the Datamine Virtuoso perk, it may seem like you're getting nothing, but you can only check at vendors when selling. Finally, there's many other locations throughout Night City that you can get quick hacks from, but these are the ones that I mainly use. Overall, the Short Circuit crit build is probably the highest damage in the game, and as such can be played extremely fast, one-shotting enemies easily. If you pre-hack using demons such as the reboot optics or weapon glitch, then it actually makes it really safe to just run through enemies and take them all out pretty easily. This build is also amazing at stealth gameplay since you have to have enough damage to one-hit enemies to ensure you stay hidden. Thanks everybody for watching. Let me know what builds or guides to do next. I'm currently leaning towards doing an in-depth net running guide. Finally, I assume there'll be significant changes either before or when Phantom Liberty comes up, so I'll definitely do an update or just more builds then. Anyway, have a good one. See you next time, tunes.
Time to party like it's 2023.